The New York Mets have won 2 series since the last time that we have done a podcast, including a series win over the New York Yankees. Welcome into another episode of the Bleav in Mets podcast. Chris Schubert, Jack McKessie back with you to discuss all things New York Mets. A lot to break down. Series win against the Brewers, a series win against the Yankees, 4 straight wins in the middle of all of that. A good last couple of days for the New York Mets, dare I say, my good friend Jack McKessie?
They say winning cures all, and it has felt better and more fun to watch the Mets when they win games. But Chris, does this mean that the Mets are back on track? Does this mean that some of the issues that we had brought up in our last episode have faded into the background for you? Because there's still some things that I think the Mets could be doing ahead of the trade deadline at the end of this month.
You know, it's fascinating because I was getting ready for this episode today, and I just don't feel different, right? And I was going to ask you because we made your anger with this team, your frustration with this team, kind of a centerpiece of the last couple of episodes, and I considered opening the show by just asking you, like, Jack, do you feel better about the New York Mets? Like, where are you at? Because you were just at the bottom. You were like rock bottom for this team, and you win a series against Milwaukee. You win the series against the Yankees. You win 4 straight games. You beat win the last 2 games of the Brewers series. You win the first 2 games of the Mets series. And there's lots of positives. Peterson looked good once again. Tidwell got a start. Frankie Montas looked, I dare I say, better than the last start out. It wasn't great statistically, but maybe a little bit better. And yeah, you won 4 out of 6 games. Like, you'll take that, but it just doesn't feel better, at least for me. And the reason why is all of the same issues that this team still has exist. Still can't hit with runners in scoring position, still have half a lineup, still have a third of a rotation. I mean, they have 6 games the rest of the way, Jack. They start tomorrow with a 3-game series against the Baltimore Orioles. Then they finish with 3 in Kansas City. They don't have starters listed for 2 of those 6 games on the ESPN schedule breakdown that I'm looking at. That's a hard thing to try to piece together. Clay Holmes, the governor, appears to be completely on Clay Holmes at this point. Whether or not they will admit it out loud, they are clearly trying to manage him. So I'm happy that they won games. I'm happy that they won series. If they continue to do that, then they're going to be fine come playoff positioning. But I think for me, all of the same concerns still exist as they did the last time we did an episode, and the episode before that, and the episode before that, because the things that are plaguing them still plague them even when they win.
Yeah, I think for me, what makes me feel a little bit better is, and again, it's a very small sample size, but to see things progressing in the right direction for guys like David Peterson, who had back-to-back blow-up outings before this most recent one, 6 2/3, pitching into the 7th inning again it looks more like a return to form for him. And I had started to have some concerns that after 2 starts in a row that had gone so poorly that he was kind of regressing back into what we saw early in his career. And luckily, that seems to be going in the right direction. Frankie Montas, I think, having a decent start. He had mentioned, I think, after his last one against Pittsburgh, that he thought he was tipping pitches, and he thinks he might have figured it out. The results were a little bit better. I don't know that I'm fully in on him quite yet, but again, small sample size. To have Reed Garrett bounce back the way that he did was a nice extra touch. And then I also liked that finally it seemed like one of the tweaks that the Mets had been making to try to bust out of this slump offensively looked like through these last 6 games that it was working to a certain extent, bumping Lindor down from the leadoff spot to the number 2 hole, and then have Soto and Alonso behind him, switching up that number 1 spot, whereas before it was kind of tweaking the number 2. Things started to progress well. Nimmo had some reps at the leadoff spot that looked really good. Also in the 5th spot in the lineup, Starling Marte yesterday had a nice game from the leadoff spot, going 3 for 5. So seeing that tweak, the lineup tweak, work, and seeing these rotation guys, Peterson and Montas, have success, and seeing guys like Reed Garrett bounce back in the bullpen, those 3 things gave me a little bit more hope. But again, the sample size is really small of only these last week of games.
And I do think that there were some things that happened over the last 2 series that were concerning. I think there were a couple of managerial decisions that I just wholeheartedly disagree with. And I think the place I would start is I get what Carlos Mendoza is trying to do. There is zero reason for Starling Marte to be the leadoff hitter of this baseball team. Like, I know you're worried about the left on left. Brandon Nimmo is a all-star Major League Baseball player who was given a big contract by the New York Mets. If you don't trust him to be able to face lefties, what are we doing here? Like, I don't need Starling Marte to get extra at-bats over the course of a game, over the course of a season, over somebody like Brandon Nimmo. You want to shake up the lineup. It's not working. You want to move Lindor down. You want to shuffle things around. I'm on board. You got an offense that's struggling across the board. You want to do something to spice things up. I can sign on board with that. I think every day it needs to be Nimmo, Lindor, Soto, Alonso in that order, those four, because those are the four that are carrying this team. I mean, we mentioned the bottom part of the lineup. You're not getting anything consistently. Could you pick a day on the calendar and that's the day Brett Beatty does well? Sure. Could you pick a day on the calendar and that's the day Luis Torrens does well? Sure. You could do that with everybody in the bottom part of the lineup. But the one constant thread for the New York Mets when they're winning is just those four guys at the top. So I would set those four guys in an order, whatever order you want to use them in, and leave that the way it is. The other managerial thing that I have a problem with, and I don't know if it bothered you as much as it bothered me, but the just decision to constantly pitch to Aaron Judge baffled me. I don't understand why in obvious spots, right? There was a spot where first base was open in the game, and they just chose to pitch to Aaron Judge. I didn't get it. I didn't understand with first base open, and I know you don't want to just wave the white flag and say we're not good enough to face this guy, but he's one of the best hitters on the planet, the best hitter on the planet. Like, yeah, you bet I'm going to pick my spots when I face Aaron Judge and when I don't face Aaron Judge. And I thought the Mets got that wrong over the weekend a bunch.
I didn't have a huge problem with that, honestly. And I mean, the results of the two wins to start the series, I think, kind of eased that for me a little bit. Like, to have the result end up in the right direction is always a good thing. But yeah, I mean, in obvious situations, like you said, where the first base is open and you're facing Aaron Judge, does Giancarlo Stanton coming back affect that a little bit? Maybe, but like, I don't know. I'm more scared of Aaron Judge at this point than I am of Giancarlo Stanton coming off his double torn elbow ligaments. So yeah, I understand what you're saying. Didn't have a huge issue with that. And then the Marte thing, I think I'm with you. He has been better in the last month, although now he has this knee issue from playing in the field for the first time in a while. Took that swing and it clearly came up wrong. Jesse Winker's on his way back soon, but I have enjoyed watching Nimmo, Lindor, Soto, and Alonso hitting in that order and the success that's come with it. I think I need to shout out Jeff McNeil as well, who has been really solid this year and looks like the power hitter that he was aiming to become, and a little bit more dangerous in the bottom part of the lineup. But I still need to see Beatty, Mauricio, Torrens. Mark Vientos still doesn't look quite right. And to have at least one of those guys, if not two or three, come together, and it would make this lineup look a lot more full. And right now it just is so top heavy.
Yeah, the one Judge at bat that really bothered me from over the weekend was in the series finale when the Mets started to make their comeback and it was 5-4, and
Yeah.
Brosbon pitched in the seventh inning, and Goldschmidt gets on with a single, and then Grisham gets on an infield hit, and now you have what was that second and third, and nobody out with first base open. Like if Judge hits a home run there, it's 8-4 and the game is over. Whereas behind him is Stanton, who's a double play threat. You could always potentially get the lead runner, but I'll trade two runs there for 2 outs for 1 run there instead of it's 6-4. Now Judge hits a sacrifice fly and it stays 6-4 anyway. But I mean, if you pitch to Judge in that spot with first base open and he hits a 3-run home run, the game's over. You're not coming back again after you already clawed back from being down 5-0. So that was the one that really stood out to me. The whole weekend of just choosing to pitch to Judge in some weird spots. You brought him up. I think it's fair to have the conversation about Mark Vientos and just about that position in general, because it just nobody wants to grab it. You have 3 guys who all, if they just could get hot for like a week, would probably get the everyday playing time for a month or so.
Yeah.
And nobody, Vientos, Mauricio, Beatty, nobody can grab it. And I don't want to say that I'm giving up on all of these guys. I'm not saying that at all. But it's just, it comes a point where the Mets want to develop these guys. They want them to be a part of their future. At some point, they have to worry about the 2025 team, and they have to worry about putting together a team that can try to win right now. And there's third baseman out there. Yaniel Suarez could be available in a trade, and he's already hit, 25, 30 home runs. That power would be huge for this lineup. And so and he's a free agent at the end of the year, so it doesn't impact your long-term plans. But there becomes a point in time where I can't watch Mark Vientos in his 212 batting average. I can't watch Ronnie Mauricio hit below 240. I can't watch Brett Beatty hit 227 and it just be streaky all the time. Somebody has to grab that spot and somebody has to produce. Now, if you've made me guess, if you've made me bet, it's going to be the guy who has the biggest sample size of being that player. Mark Vientos has the biggest sample size out of any of these three guys where he's been successful, right? He had an 880 OPS last year, hit 27 home runs, had nearly a 1 OPS in the postseason, hit a bunch of home runs there as well. Was great last year.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of me wonders is if you feel confident in Mark and you don't feel like it's a mental thing, just play him every day. Just play him every day. Let him work out of it. And if you think it's mental, then give him a day off. But this constant, this guy's over here, and then Beatty's going to play second base. We're going to move McNeil to the outfield, and then, no, we got to get Mauricio in now, and we're just then shuffling deck chairs around on the Titanic. It's not helping anybody. Nobody, given this playing time, is taking it and warranting it being an easy decision for Mendy every day to write that person's name on the lineup card.
Yeah, it feels like all three of those players have flashes, and it just feels like a similar situation to what they were already dealing with and ended up moving him down to AAA, Luis Angel Acuna, right? Because he similarly contributed defensively. He was fast, so he, could be a late inning substitution for pinch running or defense. And he just wasn't taking hold of the second or third base reps that he was getting, or even filling in for Lindor at shortstop for a little bit. And that just made more sense to eventually move him down to AAA, let him get the reps every day, let him have some consistency. And right now, you're looking at this trio that the Mets currently have on the major league roster. Beatty is that defensive guy. He is clearly the best defensive option at third base right now. But the pop that you, if in theory, are getting from Mauricio and from Vientos in these flashes could be better. And what Vientos showed in a bigger sample size, like you said, last year, throughout the regular season and the postseason, you hope he can return to become that player long-term so he could be cemented in the Mets' future plans. But right now, I feel like one of them just has to get sent back down because this weird inconsistency and this battle of everyone playing everywhere, it makes more sense to me, and especially given Tyrone Taylor's struggles recently, to just let Jeff McNeil have center field, let Brett Beatty play second, and let Mark Vientos play third. And then Mauricio is just back in AAA because he, I think, is the one that needs the most extra seasoning at the minor league level. And right now, the other two guys are ones that I feel like have more potential to give you more at the major league level.
I mean, what do you need to see? Do you need Brett Beatty to go down there and do what he did the last time he got sent down, where he just gets the cover off the ball and proves that he's fine? Like AAA is not where he needs to be playing. Like there is no value in him going down there. And to me, this is the Mets are behind the rest of baseball, or at least the good teams in baseball with this. They're getting better with the pitching development. We're seeing it at the big league level. We're seeing it at the minor league level. Remind me, I want to talk about Brendan Sprout at some point here during this podcast.
Yep.
Where they are lagging and they still haven't caught up yet, and they don't have that breakthrough person. Their hitting development is behind the eight ball. Their hitting development has not produced anybody in a really long time that you can say, other than, let's say, Pete, right? Pete would be the example. Right. But other than that, is there anybody else? Is there anybody else that's going to go on a short list? Like,
thinking of all the players that have been like among top prospects, even like before Pete, Ahmed Rosario, Dom Smith,
Andres Gimenez,
Luis Angel Acuna to a certain extent, hasn't been everything. Like Beatty, obviously, and I mean, there's Francisco Alvarez. Like a lot of guys are having struggles once they get to the major league level. Like they all excel in AAA, but they end up looking like quad A players when they come up.
Yeah, and that's where the Mets need to get better, because they have a group where if Mark Vientos plays to the back of his baseball card last year and Francisco Alvarez does what he did the year he hit 25 home runs, now I've got a lineup that's 6 guys deep at least. And that's the young players developing. That's the young players reaching their potential. The Mets right now do not have players reach their potential when it comes to the hitting side. And that's what they're fighting through right now. They kept all these spots open because this is the way David Stearns likes to operate. He likes to give these opportunities for competition. He likes to give everybody a chance to earn a job, to take a job, and he feels like this is the best way to develop these players. Well, if it doesn't work, this is the outcome. The outcome is a team that, after the 4th spot in the lineup, is a huge question mark every single night.
Yeah, it's
Huge question mark.
a huge issue. And like I mentioned Tyrone Taylor, but like that's just another example, right? Because we have this trio of infielders who can't claim a spot. Tyrone Taylor, the catcher position is still kind of up in the air because of Torrens is great defensively as well, but like he's not giving you all the offense that you hope for. Alvarez, when he was up, wasn't doing what the Mets had hoped for from a power standpoint. So yeah, it's just like so top heavy, and it's the exact concern we had coming into the year, just coming to fruition now.
And they have a full 40 man, so they can't get cute with some of these roster moves. Like, I know people want Drew Gilbert. They're waiting for Drew Gilbert or Ryan Clifford, or when we talk about the pitching here in a little bit, everyone's talking about, oh, Brandon Sproat, Nolan McLean, when are these guys, Jonathan, when are these guys coming up? Like, there's also roster considerations, but this is the peril of doing it this way. And I'm not saying I disagree with it. I actually like the way David Stearns is choosing to approach this. But when you have all of these guys who you're giving these opportunities to, none of them grab the bull by the horns, none of them take advantage of the situation, boy, it just creates a black hole in your lineup that you either have two choices. You either have to trade your way out of it or you have to spend your way out of it. And I don't think they want to spend their way out of this. I think they'll trade their way out of it as a short-term answer. They'll trade their way out of it to help them in 2025. But 2026, Stearns is going to want to do the same thing. He's going to want to keep these spots open and say, somebody, please, earn this job, take this job. But they won't give out another big contract. They've got a bunch of them on the books right now. Yeah. They're not going to go out and try to solve this externally. They're going to try to give these guys every opportunity possible until they are left without minor league options, until they are actually fully backed up against the wall with these players. And so we are seeing some of the ramifications of that strategy when it works as poorly as it's working right now. You want to quickly have a Clay Holmes conversation? I mean, I know they won't admit it, but they very clearly are just 5 innings, 90 pitches, like whichever one he hits latest, that's the stopping point.
Yeah. They'll keep denying it, but the results are there. The proof is in what they're doing, the decisions they're making. Like when he is less than 100 pitches through 5 innings and you still pull him and he looks okay, like they're limiting his innings. I understand it. I just don't know why there's like a weird denial thing going on with it.
Well, remember, I said way long ago,
yes,
this was going to be a problem.
Yep.
Like I said, they are going to have to do something about this. I actually don't believe them when they say that there's not a number. I don't believe them because it's not how this works. It's not how this works when a guy's coming off of an injury. It's not how this works when a guy is coming off of Tommy John surgery or coming off the workload that they had the year before. I mean, I can remember the days growing up watching baseball that you brought up a youngster with his minor league innings plus his big league innings. They had a cap. And that was like 120, 150 innings, like when you're talking about being a rookie. And the next year would go to 180. And then the next year you would be able to cross over the 200 number. Like I remember doing this, watching this with young players. Now you're taking a guy who's never thrown more than 70 innings in his career in a year. Closer, reliever. You made him a starter. And how many innings has he thrown so far this year? I'm going to pull up the number right now so everybody knows exactly how many innings Clay Holmes has thrown so that I can prove my point.
It's already a career high.
It's close to 100, if not over 100 at this point.
Yeah.
And so now you back him off where he comes out of the game in a 5th inning where everyone's like, why is he coming out? Or he throws 90 pitches and earlier in the season, you're pushing the envelope and you're saying, oh, no, we'll throw him 100 pitches. We'll let him go with 6th, 7th inning. Now you're backing off on that. Of course, people are going to ask. Of course, people are going to wonder. And it's okay to admit, hey, this guy was a closer last year. He's a reliever. We're just trying to be careful.
Yeah.
Just say that. I understand it because I said you were going to do this 2 months ago. Like this isn't, I didn't reinvent the wheel here. This isn't rocket science. Like this is just how this works. So I'm not shocked that they're doing it. I'm shocked at the secrecy behind it and why they're trying to like play coy about it. Just feels weird to me.
It's weird because it's like the worst kept secret in, I mean, I'm not going to say the worst kept secret in baseball because that's a little hyperbolic, but everyone knows that Clay Holmes was a reliever like for his whole career.
93 and
Everyone
third innings,
knows,
by the way.
right? Everyone knows that he's going to have a arm taxation question surrounding him as a starter this year. And everyone knows that it's in the Mets' best interest to let him or to pull him earlier in games so that his arm is preserved further down the line. We're only in July right now. We're not even to the All-Star break. And he's already at a career high in innings pitched. He's already someone that you need to monitor when they get to the fifth inning, when they get to 90 plus pitches. Why not just have said from the beginning, yeah, Clay's a guy that he obviously has a past as a reliever, as a closer. Obviously, we're pushing him as a starter this year. We're going to have some kind of innings limit or conversation about how far he can pitch into games throughout the season to make sure that we have him ready by September, October, fingers crossed. And we saw what happened last year with Shamanaya, with Luis Severino. We have learned our lesson, and we know that we're going to keep the limit on our new guy who we're doing something experimental with. And for some reason, they're saying they're not doing that, but they are. And it's obvious that they are, and everyone knows that they are.
Yeah, it's just weird. It's a weird decision. It's a weird choice to just not own up to it and admit it. And I don't know if we're making a bigger deal out of it if they weren't having the bullpen problems that they were having the last couple of weeks. And so then on
Yeah.
top of it, Clay Holmes starts now exacerbate this problem because they've been going to bullpen games. They've been using their bullpen because no one's giving them length. And now you're arbitrarily adding to that problem. Again, I get why you're doing it. It makes sense, but you're now choosing to add to that problem. And now we have to see guys like Chris Davinsky, Rico Garcia, and Zach Pop pitch for the New York Mets.
Right. And you have guys like Frankie Montas who you're trying to wean back into a normal rhythm from his IL stint. You're going to have that with Shamanai, with Kodai Senga. You're going to have that with Paul Blackburn, who already wasn't giving you a lot of length. And it's not hard to see a future where the bullpen, which has already been taxed to smithereens essentially through the first half of the season, is going to get just relied on even more. And it's going to blow up in their faces, which leads me to my next point, which is the bullpen is probably the highest priority for the Mets at the trade deadline right now because of what they're going to need to do to carry this Mets pitching staff down the stretch of the season. At least that's how I see it. Even if they don't say they're limiting Clay Holmes, even if they don't say they're going to have a close eye on Shamanaya and Kodai Senga when they come back, we know that at the end of the day, those guys are only going to be able to pitch 4 or 5 innings for a couple turns in the rotation, which means more reliance on the bullpen, which means more taxation on those arms.
Yeah, I mean, they're asking guys to throw a lot of innings.
We saw 2 4-out outings from Diaz and Stanek just like in this last week
because they don't have any other choice.
Exactly.
They're using these guys, and again, it's the way you build a bullpen in 2025. You just have a bunch of guys, you rotate them in and out. You have maybe 3 or 4 guys that you really truly trust because come postseason time, those are the guys you're gonna turn to. But you got to get there, and the Mets are going through the part where they are trying to weather this storm, and it is tough. And I don't want this to be all doom and gloom. The Mets won 4 of 6 games since the last time we did a podcast, but I think it's fair and realistic to look at some of the problems that are still plaguing this team because they used Edwin Diaz pretty aggressively here over the last couple of days. They've had to use their high leverage arms really aggressively because they just don't trust a lot of other people because they've been going through it injury wise. They've been going through it across the board with overusing. I mean, these are the guys on the injured list right now for them in the rotation and in the bullpen: Paul Blackburn, Griffin Canning, Shamanaya, Tyler McGill, Christian Scott, Kodai Senga. Relievers currently injured for the New York Mets: Jose Buttel, Max Kranick, Dedno Nunez, AJ Minter, Brooks Raley, Drew Smith, Danny Young. Like, they are just going through it right now. Going through it. Now, one thing they could do, they'd have to make a roster spot for him. So we'll see if they have an appetite for this. But if they want to solve maybe some of their relief problems or some of their starter problems, I could see them doing this with this guy either way. Brandon Sproat's starting to look good down there in AAA. Started to figure it out over his last couple of starts. You sent me, while I was on vacation, a tweet, and all you shared was the tweet. You didn't even say anything with it. You just shared the tweet that said Brandon Sproat struck out 8 over 5 scoreless innings tonight. That's all it needed to be said. He's been
Yeah.
really good down in AAA. We know that David Stearns has done this in the past when he was in Milwaukee, where he calls up his top pitching prospects and he used them as kind of these pseudo hybrid opener, multi-inning reliever, Swiss Army knife kind of players. And that's a way to kind of manage the innings on a young player's arm. And I wonder if there has been a conversation, if there's been a meeting where they go, maybe Brendan Sproat is our deadline acquisition for the bullpen because he can work multiple innings every couple of days for us and helps stabilize things with his stuff.
I feel like you can really see a path in which they use him maybe similarly to how they've used Blade Tidwell so far, where maybe they use an opener and lead into Brandon Sproat and have him be your bulk guy for
Yeah.
several innings. Maybe every once in a while he has a spot start and he's the one that is taking the ball at the beginning of the game and you have him go 3 or 4 innings, see how his stuff plays at the major league level. But the tweaks that they're clearly trying to make with him and rebuild his confidence at AAA is starting to work. We think it's a very small sample size, but in his last 2 starts, he has 11 innings worth of scoreless outings, 14 strikeouts, 4 walks, 4 hits. So again, very small sample size, but given what we expected from Brandon Sproat coming into the season, it's nice to see him kind of starting to return back to that path of maybe this is a guy that can contribute at the major league level. We probably expected him to do what Blade Tidwell has been doing.
Mhm.
Maybe now, given like you said, the up in the airness of the rotation right now with 2 games out of the next 6 they don't have a starter for. Maybe that's when you bring up a guy like Sproat and say, hey, let's see what you got before the All-Star break. And maybe come August, September, like he could be a full-fledged member of the rotation. We don't know.
You're right. And we know the Mets are going to get creative with how they use any arm that they bring up, right? Tidwell's been a starter. He was used as a piggyback off of an opener. Like they've done all sorts of different
Yeah.
things with their arms all year long. So Sproat starting a game but only giving you 3 innings and then turning it over to the bullpen, somebody starting the game and then Sproat giving you 4 or 5. There's multiple different ways for them to do this, but at some point the Mets are going to have to just decide, okay, our internal options aren't good enough. We've exhausted all of our ability to get external options because after July 31st, you're not going to be able to get anybody on this roster. That's when I think they'll be like, okay, if we have to use Brandon Sproat, then we'll use Brandon Sproat. If we have to use Nolan McLean, we'll use Nolan McLean. We'll just go to these guys because we have a team that's right now 52 and 39 in a fight to win the NL East. The Braves distant past. This is a 2-team race for the NL East. The NL East is right there in front of you. We did not think that was going to be possible this year, but it is right in front of the New York Mets. And so it would just be foolish to let things slip through their grasp. It's a day off today as we're recording this podcast. They start with a 3-game series against the Baltimore Orioles. According to Fangraphs, the projected starters for the New York Mets are Clay Holmes on Tuesday, so you can bookmark him for 5 innings, David Peterson on Wednesday, and they have Justin Hageman listed as the starter for Thursday's game. I will caution against that because they also have Kodai Senga listed as the starter for Saturday's game. And I think all of this stuff is up in the air about what the Mets are going to do with their rotation. So Clay Holmes, David Peterson, Justin Hageman listed as the projected starters, at least according to Fangraphs, for the final 6 games of the first half of the season for the New York Mets.
Listen, Baltimore's coming off of a 3-game sweep of the Braves. They helped the Mets out a little bit in pushing upwards in the standings. They have struggled a lot this season. Their offense has not looked like many expected. Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson have not quite been the players that they were in years past. Jackson Holliday has had a breakout, though, but the pitching staff in Baltimore is still pretty abysmal. Tomoyuki Sugano is going to be the second starter in the series, or he's projected to be, and I'm interested to see what kind of stuff he has. But Charlie Morton is the game 3 starter projected, and Brandon Young of a 7.02 ERA is the projected starter for tomorrow's game.
Yeah, so they just continue to win series should be the motto for the New York Mets. Continue to win series, and very quickly you will kind of turn the momentum and turn the tide here, I think, for the fan sentiment. I know for me, I'm happy that they won 4 out of 6, but I still have all the concerns about the rotation. I still have all the concerns about the bullpen. I still have all the concerns at the bottom of the lineup. And so until I see a long enough run where I see those problems being fixed, I see the pathway out of those things being addressed, it's hard to really like get back in and fully on board of they're going to chase down the Phillies. They're going to run back up a 5-game lead like they had earlier in the year. It's like, it does feel like we are going to have a little stop and start nature to this team right now until they settle into what their final roster will look like here after the July 31st deadline. But that's going to do it for us here on this edition of the Bleav in Mets podcast. Appreciate you all joining us. If you're listening to us in the podcast feed, please rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. Helps us out quite a bit. We very much appreciate it. Share the show with a friend as well. Would just do wonders for the podcast, do wonders for us, and we would greatly appreciate that. You want to watch the video version of the show, you can do so over on YouTube. Jack McKessy, McKessy, is where you can find that on YouTube to watch the show. We are back after the series against the Baltimore Orioles in the second to last series of the first half before it is the All-Star break, where we will be watching Francisco Lindor be an All-Star, Pete Alonso be an All-Star, and I assume Juan Soto will be an All-Star as well. I think he'll get in there, and the Mets will have 3 gentlemen participating.
And Edwin Diaz. Don't forget.
And Edwin Diaz. So 4 All-Stars for the New York Mets when it is all said and done participating. So lots of fun ahead for the Mets. But that's going to do it for us. We're back after the Baltimore series. See you later, Mets fans. And as always, let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.